Matt and Jess are with me now to talk about the great man as well. And Matt, starting with you, what will you remember the most about Eddie Jordan's legacy and the impact he had on the sport? Of course, we've spoken many a time about the jabs that EJ's had, and we've tried to do the same on this show over the years.
Yeah, we tried. Good evening, guys. Hello, everyone. If you're watching this live, get in the comment section. We want to hear your Eddie Jordan remembrances as well. We're going to obviously line off probably the most famous ones. As I said on Thursday morning when I heard this and put it on Blue Sky, the cars for me were always the stars of the Jordan Grand Prix and Jordan racing time. Iconic liveries. Even back pre-Formula One, the camel livery that they had on the car when John Lacey took the crown in F3000 in a couple of years before coming to F1. Of course, the 7-Up car in 91, the Jordan 191, and one of the most iconic cars of all of Formula One. I remember having the model, the little one, 148 or whatever it was, of Rubens Barrichello's Salsol car from would have been 94, I think, when he took pole. That's one of my early Jordan memories. I would have been 8 of 94 or 5 when he got the pole at Belgium. I think I from memory he got it on the Friday when we used to have a double days of qualifying, and then Saturday was rained off or something along those lines, and he held on to get pole. Heinz Harald Frentzen coming close to the championship, perhaps with a couple of wins in 99. You mentioned, Josh, Belgium 98 with Damon and Ralph. The iconic Damon Hill radio message. I'm going to tell you something here, and you're going to have to listen to me, etc. I mean, that was just brilliant. I mean, you had such a great array of drivers, didn't they? That team: Fizzy, Trulli, Takuma Sato in his early days. Then there was, towards the end, there was, a few of the pay drivers: Thiago Monteiro, Giorgio Pantano spring to mind, Freya Saka right at the end. But I mean, Eddie, brilliant as a team boss, and just the most determined. We don't get those. You can look at Formula One now, perhaps, or the last few years, the team principal array, and you go, they're not bothered if they get the sack. They're not interested. Eddie was there. He was there for a long time throughout that whole of the V10 era and into the V8 era, where we've seen so many people come and go. I mean, I guess it was kind of him and Ron, wasn't it, really, through that era that stayed around, McLaren, that stayed around for such a long time. Wasn't a massive fan of him as a pundit, I have to say, in the BBC days, but the Channel 4 video that they put together and put out this week with Bono doing the voiceover was just spectacular. But yeah, the on-track product will remain with me, especially those Buzzing and Hornets yellow cars with the bee and the snake and whatnot down the side towards the end.
And as sorry, Jess, I was going to say to Adam, Eddie Jordan gave Michael Schumacher his first ever drive in Formula One, the 91 Belgian Grand Prix in Spa. An incredible man, one of my favourite owners of all time. And yeah, it's one of the, I do believe that 7-Up car was one of Jordan's sponsors on his F1 cars back in the day. It was, yeah, the beautiful green livery. And one of the only times that EJ was outmaneuvered in Formula One, because Flavio Briatore swooped in and grabbed Schumacher for the next race as well after Belgium. And EJ felt very much like, oh, that's I don't like that. And Ron Dennis famously pulled him to one side and said, welcome to the Piranha Club. The first time that ever got mentioned. And then it sort of just become the renowned knowledge of that Formula One is the Piranha Club. It's beautiful. It all started with him, Jess. Go on, what's your thoughts?
I think without Eddie Jordan being there, Michael Schumacher wouldn't even be in the sport. I'm sure someone would have picked him up eventually, but Michael Schumacher was brought up by Eddie to start with, gave him some tips during the start of his first race, because it's always nerve-wracking. And he did pretty decently to start with. So that is what I remember with Michael Schumacher. Of course, Rubens Barrichello being in the team as well. I remember when he had pole for the team for the first time and the whole team was absolutely cheering. It was incredible. And having those famous drivers that are joining the team, it's amazing. And of course, you've got to remember the 1998 Belgian Grand Prix, one of my favourite races due to the fact that it was chaotic, and you never would have thought that Damon Hill would have won that race without Schumacher in second, and with Eddie Jordan absolutely celebrating his hearts off that he won. It was a shame that obviously it was Damon Hill's last race win, but Eddie definitely contributed to that, and I think that's a race win I'm going to remember from them for a long time. And I liked him as a pundit, really. I think, of course, in the moments when the big driver moves were said, he kind of predicted that Michael Schumacher was going to return to sport. He jumped on saying that he moved to Mercedes. He also talked about Lewis Hamilton going to Mercedes. And of course, he's helped a certain figure, which we're talking about in a minute, move to Aston Martin. So I think without those moves, I don't think Eddie Jordan wouldn't have had an impact today. And he's always likable on track. He is very likable on track. He's so funny. I remember when he did the do you know I think it was 2010, the F1 pub quiz in Silverstone, with I think Al Murray as the host, and then we had like Jake Humphrey. Jake Humphrey got on well. I think Jake Humphrey will be absolutely gutted at the news. And Chris Moore's on Comedy Dave, and I remember one of the assistants calling him Comedy John for some weird reason. But yeah, that was funny. I think he's going to be sorely missed, and he is a likable character on and off the grid.
There's a couple for me that always stands out. One, Eddie getting thrown into the pool in Monaco by Adrian Newey and Christian Horner. And then coming up and being more worried about, I've lost my glasses, I can't find them. And then you've got Adrian Newey going down to the pool trying to look for Eddie Jordan's glasses, which is fantastic. Then you've got him almost getting run over by a Brawn in Sao Paulo pit lane.
Yes.
He's going to stand back and, oh, hello, there's a car behind me. I like the one where they're wing walking on the way into Silverstone and they go upside down and everything, and EJ was in his absolute element. And the final one is from his broadcasting days. I absolutely loved it when he has Sir Paul McCartney right there and he calls him George. I was like, what the hell? Because he's signing his shirt. It might have been Abu Dhabi, one of the two. And he signed his shirt for Children in Need. He said, thanks, George. I was like, it's Paul McCartney. So yeah, he's got McCartney and it's just fantastic. And that was hilarious. And from his racing days, that 98 race was insane, and him jumping up and down was crazy. And that was
running along the pit lane like that.
Jig. And the one I always love about EJ was 2003. That race at Sao Paulo, which weird conditions. Fisichella winning, they're not winning, and then EJ storming up and down the pit lane, and and I remember he stood out to me there because he looked so dejected afterwards. But then the delight a week and a half later at Imola. So it stood out to me. And I think, honestly, if you haven't seen it, the 2003 Brazilian Grand Prix is an absolute must. I think it's one of my favourite races of all time.
Even though he's given away the winner.
Sorry.
He did win the race. He did win the race while on fire, Giancarlo Fisichella, in the pit lane.
I think the win switched quite a few times there, and I remember a lot of cars going off or turn. What was it near the centre as well? And we were worried there was going to be a red flag, and
then Alonso suddenly forgot how to see.
And Webber came around to find wheels all over the racetrack at the top of the hill. I've just pulled up the 98, the result from Spa 98, which is pretty much their most famous day. 8 cars finished that race. And I reckon 7 of them have a Jordan. 8 cars, 7 of the drivers that finished have a Jordan link, right?
Oh, go on.
Hill and Schumacher, we said, first and second. Ralph, that is. 3rd place, John Alesi won the championship for them in F3000. 4th place, Frentzen. He was in a Williams that day. 99. Went on to be a championship contender the year after. Pedro Diniz is the Cross. He came 5th. No Jordan links at all. Trulli, 6th. David Coulthard, after being ran over by Michael Schumacher, still finished. Of course, worked alongside Eddie in his TV days. And Shinya Nakano was the other finisher, and he tested for Jordan in '99. Yeah. So 7 of the 8 finishes have a Jordan link in that one race alone, which is madness.
And it's weird that David Coulthard is classified there despite crashing twice.
Yes, he was in the crash at the beginning, wasn't it? Which then, of course, held the red flag. We've got to stop the race. This is the worst start to a Grand Prix I've seen in my life.
It's just weird that race. I did 98 Belgium as well, if you haven't seen it. That's another one. But I think what he's going to be remembered for most at the moment is what I'm about to say, because one of Eddie Jordan's last acts in Formula One may end up having a significant impact for years to come, because he served as Adrian Newey's manager, and he was able to negotiate Newey's early release from his Red Bull contract, helping pave the way for Newey to join Aston Martin Racing. And without Jordan leading the way, there's no telling if Newey would have been able to move up and over from Red Bull when he did, or when the legacy car designer would have ended up today, because he could have ended up at Ferrari, and he even could have ended up at Renault, which was a very much now has appeared a big signing point. But we know one thing: Newey has one of the brightest engineering minds in Formula One history, and Aston Martin is going to benefit significantly from his influence. So, a team that over the years was Racing Point to Force India to Spiker to Midlands and then back to Jordan again, the team that is his, does Jordan deserve more credit for Newey's move from Red Bull to Aston Martin? And could his work as a manager continue to be felt years after he's gone if Aston Martin do indeed become a top contending team again? I'll start with you, Jess.
Well, I think the impact is going to be felt after he's gone, really, because without Adrian Newey being in the sport, then Red Bull wouldn't have got their constructors and drivers championships. Jordan wouldn't have performed as well. Williams wouldn't have done as well, because don't forget, Williams was running the helm of Adrian Newey as well. And the designs that Newey has made was incredible. And I remember Newey asking quite a lot of questions to Eddie Jordan back in the day. And you also got to give some credit back to, I think, Ian Phillips, because he was team principal back in the late 80s. And that's how far Jordan went back with Adrian Newey. And Jordan, I think, got a little bit apprehensive at the time on where thinking, oh, is Adrian the next big thing? But then he realized he was just so clever. He thought differently to him. We do know that Newey is like a rock star. He said as well they used to go to Glastonbury together, which I find quite funny. But I think they just got on so well that they were able to share each other's ideas. And I think because of that, Newey had a soft spot for the Jordan stroke, how many teams it went before it goes to Aston Martin, and he wants to, I think, fulfill that legacy. I'm guided to how Aston Martin are doing at the moment. Obviously with Alonso retiring 2 times in a row, but with Lance Stroll doing amazing. I can see good things with Newey being in the team, and I don't think Newey would have been at Aston Martin without Jordan's help. I think it's kind of like a sign of God. His health was deteriorating. Jordan wanted to make sure that the best engineer was with a team that he first started with, and I think Aston Martin are going to go on to big things, hopefully, in the future.
Yeah, it's odd, isn't it, that it's all kind of for that duo that it's come full circle, and now Adrian is at Silverstone, or going to be at Silverstone. He started a couple of weeks ago, didn't he? His gardening leave finished or whatever.
March.
So, that's right. So he's now in place. It's not the same building, but it's at Silverstone where Eddie began all those years ago, and he's been the driving force and behind all the negotiations to get in there, which is, as you said, just kind of strange, but also really cool that that's come around in that way. And yeah, I mean, we await to be, to see what happens with Adrian at AM over the next couple of years, especially into the regulation change coming up next year. But I mean, there's that. There's other things that we've not mentioned. Eddie was the one that was telling us that Lewis Hamilton was going to leave McLaren, and you're all sitting there. We're all sitting there in 20 whatever that year that was, going, no, it's not happening. And then you saw him walk away from the broken down car at Singapore, and you go, it's happening. He was right.
He predicted
and you said
it.
you said about Mike, talked about Michael coming back. That happened. It was him and Nicky Lauda were the two, weren't they, that were like, this is going to happen. And you go, no, not a chance. And then it happened. They were always at the front end of the news cycle.
And they thought Lewis Hamilton. We thought Lewis Hamilton was going to do rubbish at Mercedes, but now he's the most successful driver of all time. And he's just started his career at Ferrari. And yeah, I think without Lewis, this is bold move to Mercedes. I don't think he would have got anymore championships because McLaren, I think I remember back then after that was a bit of a rubbish car. So
yeah, that's right. The year after, I think they only had the one win with Jensen in Brazil. So yeah, that turned out brilliantly. But yeah, I mean, for all of the things that we've said and everything that everyone else has said in the last couple of weeks about Eddie, it's just a shame that you know, he's been struggling for a while by the sound of things health wise. He had many fingers in many pies, not just in Formula One but in other business ventures, and it's going to be a different paddock without him, let's say.
It's going to be felt massively as well. Eddie Jordan, the rock star of Formula One, the lovable Irish rogue who would make a deal with God. Go up there, Eddie. Continue rocking on and playing your spoons. Eddie Jordan, you will be very dearly missed.